Hi, Bill 1911 here. Today I'd like to talk to you about something that's very important to us, and that's your safety. Do not attempt any of the things you see on our videos until you have thoroughly reviewed and understood our safety procedures. Also, if you're under 18 years of age, do not attempt any of these topics without the consent of your parent or guardian. Thank you.
Hi, Bill 1911 here. I recently purchased a brand new Glock handgun. It's my first Glock. Now, I've had other handguns, plenty of them, but this is the first one of the Glocks that I purchased. And the reason why it took me so long to purchase one is that I never found a Glock that I was comfortable with the way that it fit in my hand. This particular model is definitely an exception. Now, as is always the case, before we work with a firearm, the very first thing we are going to do is verify that the firearm is completely empty and has no rounds in it. Okay? Even though we've just verified that, we also want to inspect the work area and make sure that there are no rounds, no ammunition present where we are. We want to keep them separate. Further, we want to remember to always remember to use your 3 gun safety rules. 1. Always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. A safe direction is defined as any direction where nobody's going to get hit or no pets, nothing of any importance to you. So what we want to do is be aware that a safe direction is not static. It changes with our environment. So as people come and go into the building you're in, you have to be aware of where things and people are at all times and keep that gun pointed in a safe direction. Rule number 2, always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot the gun. This is critical. Rule 3, always keep the gun unloaded until you are ready to use it. Using a gun is defined as when you have 100% control of it. Okay, so let's get started. This is a Glock Model 21 SF. But it's been, it's brand new, so it's a little bit dry on oil. So the first thing I want to do is I want to point out what the parts we're going to be talking about are. Now, this is the magazine release. Okay, when we press this button in, it releases the magazine from the magazine well, like that, and we can take the magazine out. Okay, this is called the slide lock. Now, what the slide lock does is locks the slide open when the last shot is fired, or you can do it manually like I just did. Now, there's a little part right here on the end of the magazine follower that pushes that up when the magazine is empty and it fires the last shot. See how that automatically engaged? Now, right here is a little slide button. This is kind of uncomfortable for me to get a hold of. It's hard for me to manipulate. In order to take the gun apart, the first thing we have to do is pull the trigger, which I don't like doing, but we check, make sure there's nothing in it. Alright, now once that's happened, we move the slide backward just slightly, just enough that we can pull these 2 levers down, and once that happens, the slide comes right off. It comes right apart. These 2 buttons, this one here and this one here, have to be pulled downward simultaneously to the bottom. If you don't get them both down at the same time, the gun is not going to come apart. The other thing I want to show you is what happens if we pull the slide back a little too far. Then the gun recocks. You'll know it's recocked when the trigger pushes back forward. Okay? So it doesn't take much to push it too far backward. Right there. You'll hear a little click, click, and then you know you've gone too far. So you push it back just a hair. I think I might, nope, not quite, just a hair, and then you push those two buttons down at the same time, all the way to the bottom, and then the slide comes right off the end of the gun, just like that. At that point, we can simply extract the recoil spring and guide rod. We can then pick up on the barrel and slide it right back out of the back of the frame. And that gun has been now field stripped to where we can use it, or excuse me, to where we can clean it and oil it where it needs to be oiled. Now, every gun has moving parts, and those parts rub together. Now, these little metal rails right here and here on both sides, okay, those are made of metal, and they slide through these little tracks, if I can show them to you, that are right here in the slide. They run the length of the slide, okay? Now, since those rub together, we want to get some oil on those, all right? We want to get some oil on the recoil spring where it travels up and down on the guide rod, all right? We also want to get some oil on any of the parts that are connected to the trigger. All these little springs and moving little parts back in the back, we want to put a drop of oil on them. In the slide, there are a few places where we want to put a drop of oil to make sure everything is well lubricated. Other than that, this gun is very, very low maintenance. There's not a lot to do to it. But I wanted to show you that even though this was a brand new gun, it still does need to have attention. Now, we don't recommend that you use any particular brand of gun oil, but we do recommend that you use a purpose-designed oil that is specifically for firearms. The reason why is that some guns, like the Glock, have some plastic parts in them, okay? Now, certain plastics react badly with certain types of oil. These plastics in this gun are designed to not react unfavorably with gun oil. I wouldn't recommend using anything else on it other than a purpose-designed gun oil, because those plastic parts can be affected by oil in the way that they can degrade and come apart, or they can swell up and bind the gun so the gun doesn't operate. So make sure you use a purpose-designed gun oil. So let's oil up these little parts here. That was quite a bit. Alright, now once we've got oil down in that spring and we're convinced that it's pretty well lubricated, we're going to make sure that we clean off the excess, because we don't want to drown the gun in oil. That's not what we're looking for. We are looking to have it well lubricated, but not slimy and slippery so we have trouble holding on to it. Alright. We know we've got some contact points here. A little drop of oil there isn't going to hurt you. Alright. And of course we want it inside the rails. And any place where we see springs and things like that, we're going to want some there as well. All right, there we go. And that's all there is to it. We're lubed up, ready to put back together. So, we drop the slide or the barrel back into place. We place our recoil spring back where it belongs and guide rod. Now, there's only one way that this is going to go in correctly. One way, you can't seat it into place. It just does not go into place the way it's supposed to. Now, when you put your recoil spring in, it has to go down all the way to this bottom point right here. Not up here on top. It's going to go all the way down. And what it's going to need is for you to push it forward a little bit until it pops in there. Once it pops down, you're ready to put it back together. Now, you place the gun back together, slide it back, and it's back together. It's all locked up, ready to go. And that's it. It's ready to go. And that's all there is to it. If you found this video to be helpful and informative, please don't forget to like us up above, subscribe down below, and please make sure you come to visit us at askbill1911.com.